This is the most important video of my series on the discovery stage of property negotiation. In this video, we'll put together all the information which we've learned in the previous videos and have a clear understanding of how to formulate your initial price to start your negotiation, as well as why sellers accept lower offers, a little bit about agents' pricing strategy and what that means, and finally some tips and tricks that you can use in order to get the property for the best possible price. Ultimately, this information will put you in the best possible position to get the property and, most importantly, save the most amount of money. Firstly, you need to work out how much you want this property based on the internal stage of the discovery stage in negotiation, followed by, on the third party stage of the discovery stage of negotiation, is the property contested, as in is there other offers? And finally, is the property at fair or under price, or is the property over market price? As these characteristics will determine how you should play your cards when placing your initial offer. To make sure I don't miss anything, what I've done is summarize these on my phone, and I'm going to read them out to you right now. So firstly, if you want the property, it's contested and it's under price or fair price, you need to put the lower of your max budget or 5% of the fair market price, which is the maximum, as the offer, and you are welcome to price fish, which I'm going to talk about in more detail. If the property is wanted, contested, but overpriced, if it's already 5% over fair price or your budget, you need to sit out with interest, and ultimately if the overbidder can't get finance or the deal falls over, you will still be in the opportunity to buy the property at a lower price. If the property is wanted, uncontested, and at fair market price or under market price, offer the full asking price with a timeline for expiry, and we'll get into what a good timeline for expiry is. If the property is wanted, uncontested, or overpriced, submit the lower of your budget or the average discount of market and justify to the seller this is the average discount of market, not to offend, provided it is within 2.5% of the fair market price of the property. If you're not fussed whether you get the property or not, or you're an investor and it is a contested property and it's underpriced, well, pay fair market price and price fish with the agent. Or if it's contested and overpriced, then just sit out of it, miss out on this deal, there's always another one. But I would also research why the property is being contested and see if there's something that you have missed. If you have average interest or you're an investor, it's an uncontested property and it's already under at fair market value, I would do what's known as a fair lowball offer. What is a fair lowball offer? Well, firstly, I would work out the market price or the asking price, and I would use the lower of the two, and then I would be using 2 times the average discount on market of that property. Whereas if it is overpriced, I would do a firm lowball offer, which is the market price and 3 times the average discount, because ultimately if they are overpriced, they're often going to counter offer back pretty aggressively as well. What is the average discount? Well, basically it's a metric that takes into account the initial listing price and the final sale price, and then it aggregates it across the market. The weakness of the average discount on market is it doesn't take into account the agent overpricing a specific property because it's an average metric. It also doesn't take into account the change in the market, if the market is rising or falling. And finally, it doesn't take into account the specific type of property which is getting that discount, because it's generally just an average across the suburb. Where do you get it? Well, there's a range of different sources that are paid. I generally use RP data, and what I do is I go onto RP data, I generate the suburb in terms of the market compare feature, and then I like to look at not only the average across the whole suburb, but generally specific properties. And the reason why I use specific properties is that these can often be used in negotiation with the agent. Now that we've got our structure for submitting an offer, let's just talk briefly about agents' different pricing strategies. The first one is a from price or a wide price band. This is commonly used by agents in 2 areas. Firstly, they're trying to set a low from price in order to drive a lot of demand in the market and have a lot of people look at the property. The other reason, the flip side of that, is that the seller's expectations are too high, and the lowest price in terms of the from price is what the seller is willing to accept. An interesting tip about this strategy is you can still submit an offer under the asking price or the from price or the price band, and the selling agent still has to present it to the seller. If hypothetically your offer is to go up above a from price and the seller is still to reject it, they technically have to increase their asking from price up in order to not misadvertise the property. The next pricing strategy is a tender, and this is where the agent puts no price on the property, but there's a particular date of which they'll present all offers on the property. Ultimately, with this pricing strategy, there is almost always another offer. If there's only one offer, the agent will write it up because they can use this one offer in order to leverage genuine buyers out of the other offers. A good tip on this strategy is if you feel that there's not a lot of interest, or it might be the guy that the agent's giving too high, sit out, wait for the end of the tender and see what happens. Does the agent extend the tender? Does the agent change a tender? Does the agent change the pricing strategy? Ultimately, any change on the tender is a sign of weakness on the seller, that they're not getting the buyer demand that they anticipated. The next pricing strategy is an asking price. Pretty simple, but you'll know from looking at the agent's previous selling history is putting a weight on the asking price worthwhile based on what the agent's done in the past. Next way is a no pricing strategy, and this is where the agent doesn't put a price on it. This is used in two ways. If it's at the start of a sales campaign, the agents are trying to extract interest out of the market by giving any buyer the opportunity to look at the property, and this helps the agent formulate a price guide and determine how much market demand there is for the property. Whereas if an offers strategy came at the back end of the sales campaign where there was a price on the property, it was listed for a long period of time and haven't sold it, it's more than likely that the seller's expectations are too high and the agent's using the offers strategy in order to elicit offers out of the market. The next pricing strategy is auctions, which I'll talk about in another video. And the final pricing strategy is to subscribe. So go there and subscribe, go there and subscribe, or there, I don't know which side it's on, but one of those two, go and subscribe, because this way you'll get more information and you'll get all the pricing strategies. The next thing is when to time an offer. Now, on every single pricing strategy, I always like to submit an offer there and then and deal on it there and then with an expiry date, apart from a tender strategy where I wait till the end of the tender or the very last hour. The reason why I wait till the very last hour in tender strategy is the agent can't use my offer to draw other offers out of the crowd, and then they have to deal with it when they're presenting it to this seller. If the agent comes back to me and suggests I raise my offer at this late stage, it's more than likely they're only dealing on my offer and not multiple other offers. They'll often also use what's known as a multiple offers annexure. Read those carefully. They actually don't necessarily state that there's other formal written offers. They state that the property's got a lot of interest, and if there are multiple offers, this is how they will deal with them. What's a credible expiry? Well, in all formal written offers, you want to put a drop dead date and time in them, but you also want to communicate why you have that in there to the agent so they know you're being serious as to why you need a response on the offer. Common examples include you have a finance approval coming to an end, you might need a time with the end of a lease or the sale of a property to move, or you might be away on a holiday so you can't deal or settle on a property while you're away. The reason why you want to have a credible expiry is that it puts pressure back onto the seller and the selling agent to make a decision, and it doesn't allow them to go and shop your deal quickly. So what exactly is a price fish? Well, this is a strategy that I've heard of and adapted in order to work out what the best possible price to put in an offer on the property. The first thing you need to work out is a friction point. So effectively, it's a reason why you can't just drop everything and submit an offer on a property. Common examples include, look, I've got the kids with me, or it's a Sunday afternoon, or I've got work, or I'm super busy with a project at work, followed by a price at which you'll submit that offer and terms, followed by, is it wasting my time, or off the cuff comment. So an example of this is, look, it's a Sunday afternoon, I've got my kids with me, I really can't get out and formally submit an offer, but I could potentially get to $440,000. Look, I'm happy to step out, am I wasting my time, or do you think it's worth writing it up? And that delivery puts the moral obligation on the agent to give you a response verbally, rather than dragging you out of the kids, dragging you out of the Sunday afternoon, writing it, and then rejecting it. Now, if the agent says, I don't think that price is going to get the property, what you can do is end the phone call, wait a little bit, and then you can call up with a higher offer and see if it will get the property. Ultimately, when you do it once and then do it again, the agent can leverage this to get a higher offer out of you. Now, the other thing to consider that is if another offer comes in at this point, I am generally a little bit dubious, because what the agent's done is got you to a point to submit an offer, then all of a sudden there's another offer. So that's why at the early stage of discovery, in terms of negotiation, I ask the agent, has there been any other offers or is there any other active offers? Now, why would a seller accept a lower offer? And this is important to be mindful of. The first reason is time on market. And I say this to everyone, if the property is overpriced, a good agent will drop the price on the listing to a point that it hits the market. So don't be afraid to wait it out. The next reason is that they're actually motivated to sell. They've got another property that they're looking to buy, or they're moving, or there is another reason as to why they need to get rid of the property. And you should have worked this out with doing some reconnaissance. There is justification for a lower price. People don't like a lower price unless they can emotionally or logically justify the lower price. Emotionally is if they like you as a buyer, and logically is if you can justify why the property should sell from less. The next is the agent inadvertently influences the price lower. Now, I'm not suggesting the agent is doing anything dodgy or doing anything untoward. Ultimately, they know where properties sell for, and as an advisor to their clients, if they think the property is overpriced and they have conviction in that view and they need to sell the property because a client wants the property to sell, their job is to educate the seller's expectations on where the property price should sit. The next one is that if there is no other offers, if there's no other buyers, the market doesn't sit there. So ultimately, with time, this should reduce the asking price. One of the last ones is third-party reinforcement from someone or something that they trust. For example, if a seller gets a valuation done and that suggests a lower price as well as the agent, or the seller sacks one agent to get another and they're telling them it needs to be a lower price, these things will ultimately lead to third-party influences that will reduce the asking price on the property. And the final reason a seller will accept a lower price is by you subscribing to this channel, because if you subscribe to this channel, I guarantee you'll be able to get the price for $1. 100% $1. Every property on the market, $1. I don't guarantee that, but just subscribe, one of these buttons down here, subscribe to the channel now. That'd be awesome. In starting to wrap up, what are the key mistakes that I see in the discovery stage of negotiation? Well, number one is giving the agent too much information about your buyer profile too early on in terms of your max budgets, or breaking rapport with the agent and not getting them on side. The other thing is being too keen or too eager to do a deal. Ultimately, if the property's not priced right, then you should walk away, and timing is on your side. The final, as silly as it sounds, is that thinking the seller has to accept your lower offer. Ultimately, no, they don't. They can walk away and they can leave it on the market, or they can sell it to somebody else. I'd like to wrap this whole discovery stage of negotiation up in terms of a discussion around strengths and weaknesses in negotiation. Throughout the negotiation process, there's often changes in the locus of control from being in a position of strength to a position of weakness, and this also applies to property negotiation. On the buying side, a weakness is missing out on the property or not having all of the information around the transaction, because ultimately it's weighted in the selling agent's favor in terms of the information that they hold. A seller's weakness in terms of property negotiation is not getting a buyer and also committing to the sale process, whether it be financially through marketing or emotionally through home opens, without getting a buyer. A seller's strength in terms of negotiation is multiple offers on the property or multiple interested parties, whereas the buyer's strength on a property transaction is that they're the only person dealing on that property with low levels of interest. You need to change your property negotiation strategy based on where the locus of control sits within a deal, and this changes from where you sit in terms of upfront or formal offer or towards the back end of due diligence. So understanding that the locus of control shifts from the buyer to the seller at different parts will help you better negotiate or pick when better times in the deal it is to negotiate. And to always be in control of negotiation, subscribe to this channel. Subscribe, just wherever you need to subscribe. Subscribe to this channel so that you can learn more negotiation tips, but more importantly, property investment, money making, wealth creation tips so that you can be in a better position long term for whatever journey you want to take for your control of your life. So now you know what initial price to walk into a property negotiation, why sellers would accept lower offers, what price fishing is, and all about the locus of control. So until you negotiate the next best property deal or my next video, best of luck and goodbye.